I went down a real rabbit hole. I think I got to the end of it, and I'm shocked as I think I'm onto something. I think I found something, and I'm going to show my work because I'm really vibing off of what I came up with here. I want to talk about multi-camera sitcoms. I like watching Friends. I really like watching Seinfeld. The fact that it looks overlit and like a multi-camera sitcom doesn't bother me as much as it used to, but I can acknowledge this is not a cinematic frame by any means. It just doesn't look that good. Whereas something like Atlanta, for instance, which is not a multicam, looks stunning, looks incredible. And that's the real difference. Multicam or three camera show, it's on a stage, it's shot with multiple cameras, and it's lit like a play, like a stage play. Single camera shows are movies. That's really the difference. There's a workflow difference, and that's really what I want to talk about because I've worked on single camera shows, and the hours are crazy long because here's a shot from Social Network. So it's a movie, David Fincher, which I'll get into the David Fincher of it in a few minutes. Anyway, this whole setup, even if there's a second camera next to this camera, which there probably is because that's just the way of the world now, it's still single camera because the setup is for one camera, one direction. And so once we get all the coverage of this girl with all the lighting the way it is, we're going to have to do what's called flip the room, which is move all the lights to the other side, move the camera around to the other side, and grab the Jesse Eisenberg coverage. It's very meticulous. It's very slow. It makes things look great. The images look great because they're curated, and the trick is the closer you move the camera in, the closer you can bring the lighting in, which makes the lighting a lot more precise and a lot more effective. You can really knock out a good image when you're really close on the camera, on the person, because the lights are really close. Multicams do the opposite. Multicams, it's just a big grid array. Everything is lit. Everywhere in the room the actors can go, and it's lit, and you can see their faces, and that's what you're grabbing. The other advantage with multicams is because you have three cameras, usually you have a center camera grabbing the wide, and then the camera on the left is grabbing everybody looking left, and the camera on the right is grabbing everybody looking right. You can get the good take with multiple cameras, and that way you can edit, you can cut it around it. Whereas to do that in a single camera, you have to get the good take in the camera, and then once you've changed something, if you want to get back to that good take, you have to make them do the good take again. So in theory, you could go a lot faster on a multi-camera set because you got multiple cameras grabbing everything constantly. This is really useful for improv where things, go into a weird direction or, characters move somewhere. If you have multiple cameras grabbing it, you don't have to artificially recreate it later. You got it. Bing, bang, boom. So that's the fantasy is, you work on a multi-camera show, you're on a sound stage, you got air conditioning, you got craft services, you got plumbed bathrooms, not trailers. What a deal. It could be shorter hours, honestly. It sounds awesome, whereas, the meticulous just grind that is a movie or a single camera show is just a different animal altogether. So I want to get to this. The thing that's stopping me from wanting to work on and or write or create a multi-camera sitcom is it's ugly. The laugh track the crowd stuff I don't really want to get into. I think that's a different video, but it's overlit. It's a lot of weird wides. It looks insane to me. So the solution in the 2000s, or at least the late 2000s, we need to shoot fast like a multicam, but we don't want it to look like a multicam because multicams are a very stale format because they've been around since the I Love Lucy, the 50s. Mockumentary or documentary. To their credit, they still have lights somewhere, but they're using documentary cameras. They're just shooting it like a documentary, and the explanation of why it looks like total crap is it's a documentary, and that makes sense. The success of that is that there's just a ton of mockumentaries out. The Office, Parks and Rec. I'm blanking now. Arrested Development, Modern Family, kind of, although they kind of split the difference. It's kind of a single cam when you actually look at it. But basically, all the advantages of improvisation, multiple cameras, working fast in the documentary format, works, and it doesn't look like a 3-camera show, that's great. But now we're in a situation where there's so many of the mockumentaries. I feel like that's stale too. I don't want to do that. And also, it looks like crap. Let's be honest. When people like Donald Glover are making this image, like, I don't really want to have to. I don't want to have to make all my shows be mockumentaries. I feel like there's a time and place, but I'd like for some of my stuff that I work on to not look like people sitting in folding chairs. And that's where I've gotten to this stuff. So I think we're at a weird time and place digitally where we can finally do this, because it used to be whether or not you were shooting. This is not a good example, actually. Whether or not you're shooting on TV or film or whatever, what you got was what you got. So this is a wide. So this is the camera that was shooting the wide, which means that's what you got. If you wanted to punch in, you had to zoom in the camera, and then hopefully another camera got the other coverage because you're zoomed in now. And then we have David Fincher. So if you're a cinematographer or a camera nerd at all, you kind of know the David Fincher of it all. He shoots a higher resolution than what is actually presented, so he can zoom in, he can punch in, he can do what the old people call pan and scan. So basically, this is Social Network. I believe it was mastered in 2K, which is basically 1080p, but it was shot on a red camera shooting 4K, which means he could basically zoom in 2 times if he needed to, so he has all that extra space to zoom in, recompose, whatever he wants to do. It's a thing that happens now pretty regularly, even in a world where most streaming TV shows are 4K. If they're mastered in 4K, they're probably shot in something higher than 4K, like 6K, maybe 8K, possibly 12K, but I'd be surprised because data becomes a real obstacle above a certain threshold for anybody. Yeah, so we can do this thing where we can zoom in. So now, if we shoot something like Friends or even Seinfeld on a 3-camera show, say we want to master in 4K. Well, instead of having the cameras just all be 4K cameras, one 4K for the wide, one 4K for this side, one 4K for this side, say make the cameras 8K. All of a sudden we can punch in. We can punch in on, say, for instance, okay, so say this is the camera left looking at Jerry on the right. That's our image. But because we're in 8K, if we need to punch in to get a tight, we can just 2 times the zoom. We're going to have to recompose, obviously, because that's part of it. Ignoring the fact that the image that I pulled from the internet is not going to work. There's our punch in. Yeah. And YouTube already does this. A lot of shows actually already do this anyway. But all of a sudden, instead of having 3 cameras shooting 3 angles, really you have, if you don't count the first wide as its own, if you just count that as one camera, you have 1 and then 2, 3 for one camera, 4, 5 for the other camera. So you have a wide and a tight on both of your coverage cameras, and then you got your wide for the middle just to play it safe for editing continuity purposes. It's a 5-camera show shooting with the 3 cameras. It's kind of awesome. It doesn't fully replace having 5 cameras on set, because those other 2 cameras could get a slightly different variation of the angle, but I think 3 cameras getting 5 possible shots is kind of a good deal. And if it's good enough for David Fincher, God, working on those sets, the level of meticulousness, the level of, God, those sets have to just crawl, I bet. You get what you pay for. You're getting David Fincher, but my God, the amount of time spent, I don't know. Anyway, so first solution to the sitcom is now we can punch in, because now we're using 8K cameras punching into 4K for the sake of argument. Yeah, that's not a thing we used to be able to do. The other thing is the color grade, and this is where things get wild, and this is where I feel like I accomplished something. So I'm gonna turn Three's Company, and this is actually how it recorded. It is that insane. Into Atlanta, and it's not going to be a 1-to-1, but it's pretty wild. So, keeping in mind also the pan and scan stuff that I was talking about, where you can punch in for coverage. Let's turn this frame from Three's Company into some approximation of this frame from Atlanta, which I believe is season 2. So I think they shot on film. So this is curated. This is a beautiful, beautiful image. I feel some kind of way about all the green in the image, but that's a creative choice. But there's no denying this is an absolutely shockingly good, beautiful image. And then we have Three's Company, which is just such a sitcom, it's so bright. The room is yellow, like there's all these things going on, but with just a few adjustments, and again, this is just footage I ripped from the good old internet, so in theory, the 8K camera you're using shoots in a high color density, like 10-bit or 12-bit or 14-bit RAW, maybe 16-bit RAW. You know, the same kind of 8K camera is also probably going to shoot a really high color fidelity, which is going to help. Obviously, this is just internet color fidelity, so it's going to suck, but I think for the sake of argument, you're going to understand. Also, one of the advantages of having, sitcoms have that huge grid of lights everywhere and everything be lit is it's a lot easier to color grade and relight and post stuff that's already bright and bring it down than it is to, take an image that's already dark and try to color grade it, try to bring it up. It's just having light is better. So the fact that sitcoms are hilariously over bright might actually be an advantage. So first thing I did was, and if you look at the graph, so I don't know how much you can see this graph. Let me see if it'll punch out. Here we go. So the threes companies on the right, this is maximum exposure. So like this is probably over here, over his head, super bright. Whereas there's a little bright spot, which is this lamp, but everything else is pretty dark. I feel like the guys live sort of in the darker regions, but here everything is everywhere, exposure wise. First thing I did was I just changed an exposure. I did an exposure value change. I actually made a curve because I wanted to make it a little bit closer to the way they did it. Obviously this is shot on film. This is me digitally manipulating the image, but I think just by bringing down the exposure and not making it this bright, airy sitcom makes a huge difference. Definitely changes the tone of what we're doing. Next thing I did was overlay. This is just a color density thing. It's kind of like saturation, but I like doing it. It just makes skin tones look a little bit more vibrant. It doesn't really help this just because this image is already just a disaster, but broken wise just because it's not a lot of data, but I like doing it. And the last thing I did was toe, which is just the bottom of the image. So basically I saw that Atlanta, the footage has a lot of green in the bottom. So I just add a little bit of green in the bottom, and then I did a little bit of a contrast. It's a saturation change where the lower exposure stuff loses saturation a little bit, kind of the way film tends to. And you know what? I actually want to do one more thing. I want to lift up the shadows a little bit to make them more compatible with the way Atlanta looks. Yeah, and here's what's so crazy is here's the before. Bright, insane, white people sitting on each other's laps, just absolutely ridiculous. That's a different show. I feel like that's a different show. I feel like that might be a movie. It feels like a movie in the 60s, but it's still a movie. So are these one-to-one? No. But given this is all theoretical stuff, I think we can get into it. We can arguably say we're in a place where, as long as you're starting with a really crazy bright sitcom, if you want to work in post, you can turn it into a little bit more of a dynamic image. Obviously the Atlanta footage is so much more everything, but anyway, moving on. I got another Three's Company image, and this is a wide. And so actually, we'll look at the Atlanta clip first. So this is a wide. Basically, you're seeing the whole room. These lights, these are, I mean, they're practicals. They're in the shot, and they're beautiful, and they're considerably brighter than that light, I realize now. And they've got a glow, so it's either the haze in the room or probably something on front of the lens. I want to do this now. These beautiful like hanging. What they literally are is they're space lights. They're filmmaker space lights, but they're hanging lights to expose the room. I want to do that now. This is blowing my mind, but that's not what I'm here for. What I'm here for is, here's the wide of Three's Company, and if you put them next to each other, could they be more different? R.I.P. Matthew Perry. Basically, you got people. That's what we got. We do have yellow stuff in the room, which is just a coincidence. That was not on purpose. But other than that, it's what we got. So I'm just going to copy paste what I did on the last one, and there you go. We went from that to that. I kind of buy it. Obviously, they're not identical because this is Atlanta and this is me doing it badly fast, but holy crap. And then, for sake of argument, let's do one more, a little bit more difficult. So the Atlanta image, it's a kitchen, and there's just a huge amount of haze. I didn't do the chromatic aberration stuff that's on here that's super beautiful, but very hazy room, smoky room, nighttime, that kind of thing. And then we have Three's Company, the kitchen, and it is what it is. If you look at my node tree, it's a little bit more complicated because I did a little bit more stuff. The haze that I tried to add in took me as long as the whole rest of this combined because I got obsessed. But yeah, so let's do this thing, shall we? So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna do our standard exposure change, sure, and then the saturation, density, color density, hues. I added some moonlight in the fact that I cooled off the image, so that's just the image cooling off. And then I did the toe just like the other one, and then we're pretty close. And then I haze. Yeah. So again, is it Atlanta? Did I literally just put Three's Company in the Atlanta world? No, but for the sake of argument, I think we're on the next frontier of what we can do with multi-camera sitcoms. Because again, I just want to sit in the air conditioning, eat craft services. I don't want to have to be in an apartment. Actually, more likely outside on the street, while people are inside Atlanta shooting in an apartment. It's a tougher life. Whereas, there's always going to be shows that deserve this level of curation that Atlanta is known for. A lot of other shows don't need that. And, in a world where mockumentaries are everywhere and there's been so many good ones that it's like, why even bother? Because you're pissing in the ocean. I think this way to do it, where you shoot at a higher resolution, so you can punch in if you need to, and then just make sure the camera has enough data that you can recolor it in post. And furthermore, I actually want to show this. So in this image, and then this is very much what film does. What movies do is, yes, that side of his face is exposed, but the side we're seeing is pretty dark. It could be that that's just how it was shot. It could also be that there's a big black panel right here doing what's called negative fill, making it like an even deeper shadow, absorbing the light. You can do that in post. It's not a perfect science by any means, but let me just show you how I could do it. I would call this relighting. And this is going to be real messy, but I'm just going to do just a shape, and we're just going to bring the exposure down, and we're just going to blend it a little bit. And we're going to get rid of this, and we're going to get rid of this, and we're going to look at it, and we're just going to see, how did I might move it over just, maybe bring the softening down, just, it's too bright. Anyway, my point is, you can do some relighting in post. Is it going to be as good as the actual footage is? Certainly not. But, yes, every cinematographer is going to want to be able to nail the image on the day, because that's why they get paid the big bucks. However, again, whoa, sorry. Fat fingers. We started with just a silly bright image, and now we're in a place where, ignoring the fact that I don't super like how I did that shape, I think we're onto something. So I don't know. I would like to see this put into action. I would like to be the one to do it, obviously, but I want to see sitcoms shot on a stage where, you get the benefits of shooting fast and shooting improv-y on a stage where you can get the actors to really get into their zone and play and do their thing. No comment about the crowd and the audience, obviously. But then you bring it into post, and some pan and scan, some recomposition, and some color grading, and you have something not quite as dynamic as the tippy top, the way something like David Fincher or Atlanta would get you. But I mean, this is a far cry from what it started at, and I think that's worthwhile. Does this look better than The Office? I guess is my final question, and I'm gonna argue yes. We got that. We got that. We got that. We got that. I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes every day. So yeah, that's what it is. What do you guys think? Did this make any sense to you? Is this the ramblings of a crazy person? Let me know what you think. Like, share, subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Yeah.